Thanks so much, Chris. I'm Sheryl Plouffe. Glad you're here for an update on your forecast. Just a programming note, want to mention that we have our Winter Outlook special program that we want to be setting your PVR if you don't intend to be home at that time. But if you're home and you can watch it live, Chris Scott, Chris St. Clair, a very spirited discussion about the Winter Outlook and what we can expect. So let's get into your forecast details. We have some power and we've got some rain on the way as well. I'll get into more of those details in a moment. Let's go over to Rachel downtown. Well, Rachel, we have two cold fronts that are coming through. It is both hands on the steering wheel, no question about that. Rain and wind. Then we get a break. In fact, later this week, we have the potential of a few flurries and also the temperatures. Big story. The temperatures are going to be plummeting today. It's so mild, but that's not going to be the case for the rest of the week. I like that, Mike. It is inconvenient, no question. Environment Canada has issued fairly widespread warnings, actually, today. North side is Superior, and that's where Long Point is right there. That's where Mike was. And then up into the Midwest of Ontario, Bruce Peninsula, too. It's going to be very, very problematic for driving, both hands on the wheel, and you definitely are going to probably be running into some power outages, at least maybe in some localized regions. But clearly, as we put this map together, you can see that the strongest winds are nearer to the lakes. We have two different cold fronts today. In advance of the first front, that's why it's drawing up more of the southwesterly flow. And of course, you've got a good fetch with no friction on the lakes. And then the secondary cold front is the one that brings down the temperatures. That will be the case in Sudbury and out down to where North Bay. In fact, we have as soon as this evening, in fact, as the temperatures plummet, it's going to be possibly some bursts of heavy snow at times. So the travel here from Lake Nipissing through Sudbury back towards Sault Ste. Marie will probably be not ideal. I would definitely want to switch my plans if the driving up in that region was part of the plan for today. But Midwestern Ontario, less than 5 centimeters of snow. And then rainfall, again, the totals will be heaviest in the Parry Sound area and adjacent portions of Quebec. Back across Atlantic Canada, the general totals are going to be between 15 and 30 millimeters of rain, which is significant. It's not epic rainfall. And then back toward the west, we've got some rain at the coast. At sea level, we're talking about a lot of rainfall. Nanaimo is one of the regions, and at least at elevation of 500 meters and above, it's going to be snowfall, and that will be winter driving in the mountain passes for sure with this low pressure system. Also, we're going to get some snow in Alberta. Today, the temperatures are not that bad because we have a downslope wind keeping the temperatures up. It's very windy in Pincher Creek. Gusts later today over 100 kilometers per hour, but then the winds will ease and the snowfall totals will be potential for some flurry activity. And then later this week, a bigger storm is going to come, and that's the one that's going to bring us maybe 15 centimeters of snow. Our storm watch coverage continues. Our storm watch coverage continues. Thank you so much for being here. And just a programming note that our winter outlook is being released later today at 9 p.m. Eastern, so you don't want to miss that. I know we're talking about some mild temperatures today, but by tomorrow and the rest of the week, it's going to feel more winter-like, and you're going to want to know what's going on. We'll have those details for you at 9 p.m. today. Let's take a look at where we are with our wind warnings. Yep, they're in place from Environment Canada. Winds 80 to 100 kilometers per hour in the red shaded areas closer to the lakes. And these are southwesterlies. It's going to be a very windy day today. Hopefully we don't get much from power outages on this, but I have a suspicion we probably will. Let's turn it over to Rachel down in Toronto near the water. Thank you, Rachel. Well, now let's go to the real-time radar. Give you an idea of well, first of all, the types, because in blue is snowfall in northern Ontario, some mixing and freezing rain, but largely this is a rain event for most of Ontario at this point, but things are going to change clearly as we have our second cold front coming through. It'll bring down the temperature significantly. That will start as soon as this evening in the northeast. And Sudbury, North Bay, back toward Sault Ste. Marie, will be seeing very poor driving conditions later this evening. Probably want to put off plans actually through that area, but Parry Sound and back up just north of Pembroke and into adjacent Quebec will be seeing the highest rainfall totals from the system. So when we look back to Atlantic Canada, the rain's coming your way too. 15 to 30 millimeters of rain. Halifax, on the other hand, we've got some nor'easter, yes, on the way for you. That's going to be coming in up the Atlantic seaboard. Obviously, this is going to be a problem for the U.S. Thanksgiving travel plans later this week, but off it comes, and we're going to be seeing some strong winds and precipitation from that. That's one we're going to be watching very closely. But when we look at our wind chill values through this afternoon, in Thompson, it feels like minus 25, even minus 20 wind chill in Winnipeg, but back toward Alberta, it's a little bit more moderate. Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to that, Deb, to see what exactly is in store for us. Chris St. Clair, Chris Scott, they're going to break it down for us later. When we look toward the west, though, high pressure to the north, it's Arctic air, so that's supplying the cold. We've got our Pacific moisture with our low pressure system coming in here, and this is going to result in snowfall, a lot of it. You're right, Mike, and Environment Canada has issued some wind warnings for, well, Long Point, right where you are, and then the north side of Lake Erie toward the Niagara region, and then up into Midwestern Ontario and down the shoreline of Lake Huron, down as far as Grand Bend. So these winds will be 80 to 100 kilometers per hour at times throughout the day in advance of our cold front that's going to be sweeping by. But clearly we've got some strong winds even in areas that are away from the waters. So travel on the 401, it's probably a day to have both hands on the wheel for sure. We've got our rainfall, as you can see with our real-time radar, and a spin, actually you can see it this way, the spin of low pressure, it's all rain, but look at this. This is actually, and wouldn't be surprised to hear a few rumbles of thunder down in the southwest as we have some reflectivity that's just showing a slightly bit more of rainfall through those areas. But on top of that, you add on top of that the rainfall. Now, in New Hamburg, which is just west of Kitchener, we're not expecting to see as much rainfall, but 10, say, millimeters of rain, 10 to 20. But further north in Parry Sound, which has, remember, this is an area last week that had 90 plus centimeters of snow, and you add on top of that an excessive amount of rain, it's going to be a mess. We have freezing rain warnings in place for Quebec, north of the Saguenay River region, and then back into northern Ontario, freezing rain and winter storm conditions. First, though, let me show you the totals. Sudbury, North Bay, back towards Sault Ste. Marie, it's not going to be great for travel. I would definitely be putting off those plans, I think, for the evening period because we're looking at some very poor driving. But I talked about the secondary cold front. There it is. It comes through and brings down the temperatures. This is really, the first one's the wind, the second one is the temperatures, at least the temperature drop. That's one way of looking at it. Then we have, of course, the blue and the purple. Yeah, it's going to get cold. Feeling like minus 20 in Winnipeg for today. So wind chills in blue, temperatures, core temperatures in white and black, but you can see neighbors in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. But it's because we have the west wind. It's going to be very windy in the Pincher Creek area today, over 100 kilometers per hour. So Ontario and southwest Alberta dealing with winds. And then they'll be shifting to more of a northerly. Eventually, though, Wednesday, it's an easterly wind. That's an upslope with the topography of the mountains and all of the right conditions. We've got some Prince George. We actually have some Environment Canada issued snowfall warnings in place for the Williston and McGregor areas in excess of 20 centimeters in some cases. Coast Mountain Range, Whistler Blackcomb open for business. BC Interior, mountain passes, snow, low snow levels. That means we're going to be seeing some poor driving. Vancouver, expect to see over 100 millimeters of rain this week. And then we have some colder temperatures settling in for the Great Lakes. Our storm watch coverage continues on the wind. Thank you so much, Chris St. Clair. By the way, Chris St. Clair and Chris Scott, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, they will have the Winter Outlook. It's a special 30-minute program dedicated to what's ahead this winter, so you don't want to miss that one. Environment Canada has issued for Prince Edward County, back toward the north side of Lake Erie and Midwestern Ontario. And some very strong winds, anywhere from 80 to 100 kilometers per hour at times today in advance of our cold front. And this is drawing in, it's a southerly wind. It's bringing up the temperatures, which on the surface sounds like a good thing. However, it's bringing some strong winds, and it's also going to be resulting in rapid snow melt. We're hearing of some problems in Kitchener-Waterloo with the water levels at this point, and then back into northern Ontario with our secondary cold front. For Wednesday, the focus will shift to Alberta with the big snow and the nor'easter in the Atlantic provinces. Thank you so much for being here for Storm Watch coverage of the winds in southern Ontario. I'm Sheryl Plouffe. We'll get you through this forecast. We have some very strong winds to deal with today from the southwest, and it's all going to change tomorrow and get a lot colder too. So these are the wind warnings posted from Environment Canada. Up toward Owen Sound, the Bruce Peninsula, down Durham Way, and even down toward Grand Bend. And then, of course, you've got the north side of Lake Erie, where the winds are very strong. These are the peak wind gusts as of this morning. Again, we're looking already meters per hour, but let's go down toward Long Point, which is right about in this area, and check in with Mike Arsenault. Thank you, Mike. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, we put this map together to give you an idea of the kind of forecast that we're looking at for today. So it's a day where you have to have both hands on the steering wheel because it's the kind of wind that can start to pull you in either direction. It's interesting because from a meteorological standpoint, we've got two cold fronts. So the first one comes through, doesn't really bring down the temperatures all that much. It's the second one. In fact, travel conditions here from Sudbury up toward Sault Ste. Marie will be very problematic later on today. So the rainfall totals are going to be especially high around Parry Sound. Further to the north, though, it's rain changing over to snow, and this is going to be a big problem for travel. Across southern Ontario, I mean, it doesn't take much in these very populated centers to have problems with the snowfall, so we'll have to be watching it closely. Just be prepared that despite the temperatures being so mild now, big changes are coming. So when we look at our radar times, general amounts though through Tuesday night for the Atlantic provinces, anywhere from 15 to 30 millimeters of rain. The winds will then move up, of course, to the east. It's going to get a lot colder across Ontario. And our storm watch coverage continues. Thank you so much for being here. We've got lots of strong winds expected today from the south and west and rainfall. Boy, what a far cry from where we were last week with all of the cold and snow squalls. We'll get back. But right now we're talking wind. In fact, we've got this all shaded in here. So this is all wind-warned areas right now, exception 80 to 100 kilometers per hour today. Definitely going to be needing to be mindful that there could be power outages with the types of winds that we're experiencing today. And pressure around our rain here. So we see the rain in green, and then it's all changed over now, changed over in Kapuskasing from rain to snow. And we're going to see that trend continue down toward Sudbury, Timmins, and North Bay by later today. Through the south and west, don't be surprised to hear a few rumbles of thunder, and you may not know what it is initially. That's what it is. I know it's November, but nevertheless, there's that potential today with the instability and all of this rain moving up, and again, the strong winds. In some cases, I think 100 in some cases. Well, now we're adding 20 to 30 millimeters of rain on top of that. So it's really not the best of weather really across a large portion of Ontario today. To the north, though, I mentioned about this transition over to snow. It's like 10 to 15 centimeters of snow. That's a lot. And there will be poor road conditions in this region. Concerned with some storm surge on the north shore of Quebec and toward Anacostia, and then the Cabot Strait, we'll see some strong winds. But the forecast really for this week is going to be a nor'easter. It's on its way. It's going to cause a lot of problems in the United States for Thanksgiving, of course, later this week. But for us, for the time being, we've got this rain moving through, and then we'll see the nor'easter later in the week. So through Tuesday night, thank you, Sue, for sending that in. And Vancouver is going to see far more than in Nanaimo, no question. Vancouver, in fact, this week, it's going to rain almost every single day, and we may end up with over 100 millimeters of rain this week. Now, by contrast, snow in the mountains, BC interior, Calgary also going to be getting some snow. Let's check in with Deb. Thank you, Deb. Well, today the temperatures are not too bad in Alberta. It's going to get a lot colder by the end of the week. We've got Arctic high pressure making its way down. Some wind chills today in Saskatchewan and Manitoba in the minus teens, minus 20s. That cold air is on its way down. We're also going to be getting some decent snow. So glad you're here for an update on your weather. I'm Sheryl Plouffe, and we're going to take a look at where we are with the rain and the wind across southern Ontario today, and a quick look across the country as well. But let's take a look at our real-time radar. Thing we want to note here is that there is the potential for some thunderstorms within this rain today across the south and west in particular. But when we look at our radar, you can see that at times it's coming in at least moderate rain, even up toward Georgian Bay, which last week was over 100 centimeters of snow. Well, now we're adding all this rain on top of it. So it's a big mess across the north and east toward Parry Sound. And then Sudbury starting as rain, but then changing to snow later. We do have Environment Canada issued wind warnings. In fact, all of this now is included in the wind warning through this region. So 80 to 100 kilometers per hour in the red shaded areas. So we have very strong southwesterly winds. We're going to go to New Hamburg at this time. Across northern Ontario and northern Quebec, freezing rain warnings expand all the way back, and despite it starting off as rain, we have a switchover expected later tonight. This evening, in fact, 10 to 15 centimeters of snow. So the cold is coming in behind our cold front. So all that cold air that's in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. All of that is going to be pushing into the Great Lakes, and southern Ontario will be far, far colder tomorrow. So it was just a one-day warming. Back across Alberta, on the other hand, we've got some pretty decent temperatures, I mean above average, but let's go over to Deb and see what it's like outside. Well, Deb, we really have kind of two blasts of snow, if you will. The first one for Alberta is not going to be so bad. It's later in the week that we're going to start to feel the impact of the upslope snows, and that. Thank you so much, Mike. Mike's down in Long Point right here. We have widespread and now an expansion, in fact, of the wind warnings for Lake Ontario as well. These are southwesterlies, and keep in mind that without friction from the lower lakes, that's where along the shorelines we have the stronger winds. The same is true for Lake Huron and up into the Bruce Peninsula. 80 to 100 kilometer per hour winds expected today. Now, tomorrow, on the other hand, we're going to bring down the temperatures on top of it. So we'll get back into winter weather. Don't you worry. Last week we had snowfall. We've already seen the transition from Kapuskasing from rain to snow, and we're going to continue to see that happen towards Sudbury by later in the day. It could take the bulk of the day for that to happen. But in the meantime, Parry Sound, we're going to end up with 30 millimeters of rain on top of the big-time snow squalls we had last week. We're going to get back into squalls later this week, by the way. Freezing rain warnings still in place for Quebec, up toward Moosonee, and now winter storm conditions are expected later today in northeastern Ontario. We might see some watches and warnings as a result of the changeover expected in the northeast, so do be aware of that. Two different cold fronts coming through. In advance of it, warmth. Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, all above average. The first front comes through. It doesn't really bring down the temperatures that much. The second one does. And it will make it feel like winter once again. And just a quick programming note that our winter outlook is being released on the Weather Network later today. Chris Scott, Chris St. Clair talking extensively about the winter outlook at 9 p.m. at Winnipeg. It feels like minus 20. Cold temperatures in Saskatchewan as well. Now back into Alberta, on the other hand, it'd be windy, but with that westerly downslope wind, it also helps to keep the temperature up for the time being. Now our low pressure system comes through, and again the temperatures are going to plummet. We're going to get some snowfall coming through as well. So we've got the cold air in place, and then later this week another low comes in with some upslope snows. But this system is going to come through mostly down into Saskatoon. 5-10 centimeters of snow expected. Likely bigger snows up to your north and east near Mackenzie and the Williston and McGregor areas of BC. Mountain passes in particular. Snow levels 500 to 800 meters at times, 15 to 30 centimeters, a foot of snow expected. Poor driving in those areas. And then the coast mountain range, 15 to 30 centimeters. So if that's at elevation, but at sea level, it's about rainfall. Vancouver, between now and late Tuesday, 45 to 70 millimeters, but we could add another 40 on top of that Wednesday. So it's likely we will see over 100 millimeters of rain because it's expected to continue to rain right through until Friday. West side, Vancouver Island. By contrast, colder in Ontario. We talked a little bit about that. Now the nor'easter. Keep in mind, this week is the U.S. Thanksgiving. This is going to be a huge travel day. Problems likely in some of the major hubs in the northeast U.S. The nor'easter moves into Atlantic Canada. With it, some snow, some rain, wind, all the usual suspects, and stormy across the west. Our Storm Watch coverage continues, and can I just mention a quick programming note, just because we were just watching Chris St. Clair, but Chris St. Clair, Chris Scott, later today, 9 p.m. Eastern, Winter Outlook, a 30-minute program with the two of them discussing at length the winter ahead and what we can expect weather-wise, so you don't want to miss it, 9 p.m. Eastern. We do have wind warnings in place from Environment Canada. The winds, 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. That's damaging wind that we're talking about today in southern Ontario, and even for places away from the waters, it's going to be strong. So it's definitely one that we have to be mindful of potential power outages. Keep in mind, it's also bringing up the temperatures. We've got a snow melt underway, and we've got rain on top of snow. So it's not so great in the Parry Sound area, 30 millimeters of rain, and then further north where it rains, it's going to change over to snow by later today, by this evening. So the highlights for Tuesday, the nor'easter. That is going to be a big story for Atlantic Canada over the coming days.